Welcome to the Thrivecast, headquarters of Thrivevolution, where we seek out the evolutionary leaders of the new era and explore how we are the technology. I'm your host, Jaime Lund, and today we're joined by Jason Christoff, a mind control, brainwashing, and propaganda researcher who has spoken at the U.S. Senate, the EU, Japanese, and Romanian parliaments. Jason believes that the only real path to reversing the current trajectory of the human condition includes understanding how mind control, propaganda, and brainwashing operate so their effects on us can be eliminated or curtailed. He has a brand new documentary coming out titled Planet Mind Control, which exposes how the media is weaponized to shape perception and keep large groups of people locked into self-destructive patterns. For those of you that want to start the new year off right and create lasting transformation, Jason's Power in You course starts January 18th. We've included a link in the show notes for anyone who wants to join us. I'll be participating along with my two daughters who will be joining the Power in You youth program for ages 13 to 22. Let's dive in. Jason Christoff, welcome to the Thrivecast. How are you, my friend?
Jaime, I'm doing absolutely fantastic right now. How are you doing?
I'm good. We are working on different time zones, and I am like up at the crack of dawn and doing all of my, empowerment exercises and meditations without coffee. And we're just leveling up and getting ready for 2026. So, of course, we are relaunching the Thrivecast and Thrivevolution 2.0. So it's a super exciting time for us over here. We're getting ready to do some filming for a new TV show that we have coming out and we're participating in. And as I looked at sort of my Rolodex, so to speak, of people I've met over the years, people that I admire and that I respect, people who I think are really nailing it, you come top to mind. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so what I want to dive into today is I really want to touch on the minefields that we're facing right now. I feel like when I get the visual of what's going on right now, we're on a racetrack and there's carnage and there's tires flying off of the cars, there's smoke, there's broken, it just... And when I imagine those of us that are going through it, like the eye of the tiger, we got our hand on the steering wheel, we're looking through the smoke. And really the only way you're going to make it out of that and get around the corner and out of the smoke and just be able to accelerate in 2026 is to be able to know what's coming at you, how to dodge it. How do you know the tire that's rolling towards you, the fire that's on your left? So really what I feel you do is you peel back the layer, the lens that most people, I would say 99% of people, are unable to see the deep programming, the mind control, the mental manipulation. There's a million words that we call it, and we're going to get into that. But we want to help our viewers today and our community to be able to lift that veil like we never have before so that we can accelerate into 2026, empowered, thriving, and doing it in style. Thrive style, we like to call it around here. And you are doing it in style. I have to give you props for your work in the Senate, speaking in parliaments all over the world. You obviously have a very strong mission on this planet. I want to hear a little bit about your mission, what you want to do, and what you want to achieve here moving into 2026, Jason.
Well, I want to apologize to people for the color quality here inside my studio. I keep looking at myself like I'm out of the cast of Breaking Dawn. I live in Latvia now, and there's no sun here whatsoever. So my apologies if I look like I just crawled out of a Thriller video, but I guarantee that I'm really, really healthy. My mission is always the same. It's always about saving children. I have a phrase, he who saves the most children wins. So I don't know how much time I have on the planet, but when I was a young man, I noticed how we treat children on this planet. And we still continue to treat children pretty badly. So my mission with all my work, speaking at the U.S. Senate, speaking at the European and Japanese and Romanian parliaments, and doing public appearances. I've done 500 interviews, or I've been interviewed 500 times. I've written 6,000 articles. And they all have that same mission of waking people up. And because you can't just say, this is the problem. Because of the way mind control works, they can't see it or they don't care about it. So you have to try and write about the same problem maybe 100 different ways, hoping that one of those ways will be a lock and key mechanism inside the person who's reading the article or viewing the interview so that it unlocks their consciousness for the first time. It sort of decouples their consciousness from their programming that they picked up in, say, school or through the media, and sort of frees them in a way, gives them enough time and space to start thinking freely about what they're really doing here on the planet, how they're treating themselves, how they're treating their children, how they're treating nature. Because you can listen to me all day long and you might like what I say, but it's sort of useless unless I can impregnate into you the ability to think on your own. So what I try and do is just try and expose and put on display sort of sessions of deep thought so people can mimic and mirror and emulate that themselves, so that when they go away, they don't need any more guidance. They can guide themselves, because we have to start guiding ourselves in the morning, at noon, and at night. And it's good to get information, but to rely on third parties like myself to always be the Yoda of a group, it's important that other people become the Yoda as well.
Yeah, I mean, we really wanna teach people how to catch their own fish rather than give them a fish, as the old adage goes. Now, you are not only an evolutionary leader in the new era, but you are also a very exceptional businessman, what we like to call one of the new entrepreneurs. You work in all sorts of different modalities, helping people to become sovereign beings, to be what you would maybe refer to as proper adults. I actually didn't realize, and I'm gonna allow myself to be a little bit vulnerable in our time together, because I thought I was an adult until I started taking your Freedom from Self-Sabotage coaching program, which I'm currently
Yes.
taking at the moment. And, I was shocked at my ripe age that I shockingly had programs that were so embedded and so deep within my subconscious that, of course, I wasn't able to see them, and they've become so habituated. And the neuroplasticity that I'm really learning about and embracing right now is something that I've become aware of how programmable we are as beings. And unfortunately, you are either, in a sense, programmed by others or programming yourself. And so let's talk a little bit about your early days on that note of being in the health industry. What was your red pill? How did you wake up to realize that we were being programmed and influenced to such a degree?
Yeah, I had a small chain of fitness clubs in Canada, health facilities. But I mean, every year I'm learning, I'm awakening more. And it was a gradual awakening process where I was really beating myself up, even when I had the health facility, which is sort of typical for the North American lifestyle. I had a health facility. I looked very pretty at 24 when I first opened my first health club, but I wasn't healthy. I was hurting myself with alcohol. I got into cocaine about 6 years after that, some recreational performance enhancing drugs. And I was really beating myself up and destroying myself on a grand scale that even Satan would stand back and say that might be a little bit too intense for me. So, that was the basis of my introspection, was why are you actively destroying yourself by your own hand and doing it in such frequency? It's almost like an Olympic sport. Why are your friends doing it? Why is people in your family doing it? Everybody's poisoning themselves. Their lives aren't what they say they are, or what they sort of front to the public. And, in my journey as a health coach, I did attend Paul Chek's Institute, the Chek Institute in San Diego, California, where I learned, the way this goes. I learned that everything I knew about diet was backwards. And I had picked that up from the media and from the school. And as soon as I started to improve my diet and give my body what it was actually designed to absorb, the veil started to lift, and I started to see reality and feel reality in greater and greater exposures. It was a, very magical time. So I went back to my health facility where I was working, and I started training people, and they would pay me thousands of dollars, because the Czech Institute is the highest grade certification for exercise and nutrition. And they couldn't do it. They could not do it, unfortunately. They would want to lose weight and they couldn't let go of their addictions. They were addicted to hurting themselves as much as I was addicted to hurting myself before I met Paul Chek. So I was wondering, where's this program coming from? Like, how is this the base format programming in our society? Like, where's this alcohol programming coming from? Why is like narcotics glorified where all the kids want to step out the back of the high school and smoke a joint? Or I couldn't wait to do cocaine as a 30-year-old because I watched so many Scarface movies. I thought this is the epitome of good living, right? I can't wait to get in the hot tub with the Cristal, with the ladies, big amount of cocaine on a mirror next to me. I thought, this is the good life. And I said, where does this come from? This is not the good life. I'm killing myself. So I really started to investigate mind control and brainwashing because of my own programming that was really self-destructive, and because my clients were paying me thousands of dollars and I couldn't break whatever made them unhealthy. I couldn't break it. I could grind them into hamburger patty in the gym and almost destroy them with every workout, but they couldn't put the wine down. They couldn't put the coffee down. They couldn't stop watching people murder each other on Netflix, which hurts their brain, as well as their body. And I just really dove into trying to figure this out more for me than for other people. Then I found this huge area of study of brainwashing, mind control, behavior modification, psychological manipulation, MK Ultra. And I really dove in and said, this is the area of study that is the absolute most important in the world. So I'm going to dedicate myself to this, because it doesn't matter if you're a hockey player or an F1 driver or a mom, or you're a politician. If you don't know how mind control works, you can't be your best, because the mind control campaigns out there today. I'm a mind control researcher, as you said, and I've spoken, at the US Senate and three world parliaments. Yeah, the mind control in effect today is absolutely designed to make you the biggest human mess possible. And if you don't understand how how the deck is stacked against you and how this operates, you're going to have a real hard time navigating success, regardless of what path you walk down.
I would say that it's almost impossible to accelerate or succeed. Maybe you might have little moments of it without this information, but otherwise it's almost impossible to succeed and move forward. My dog is having a moment.
I totally could hear that. Maybe she thinks I'm a vamp.
Well, when you're used to being in the sun like you are, it's hard not to be
Uh-huh.
getting the sun. It really is.
Absolutely.
So, Jason, I'm going to quote you. I thought this was very poignant. Everything I do in a day revolves around exposing the psychological manipulations used against you and your family. This attack on you is unfair, unwarranted, and extremely immoral. Together, we're going to change all of this in 2026. My first order of business, with your very interesting re-education, is how the ruling group, hiding behind media and government, constantly manipulate you psychologically, so you stay small, mediocre, and below average. Struggles in life will happen, absolutely. But you go on to say the amount of struggle that you're experiencing is socially engineered. And you're going to show us how that struggle is being organized that will shock, amuse, and absolutely blow people's minds. I'd like to put some of the videos that you suggest people watch in our show notes so that people can start to understand what hackable creatures we are, so that we can understand how we're being programmed, go through the process of deprogramming, and then reprogram with the stuff that we want to put in. So when we
Mhm.
talk about this multi-generational crime syndicate, as you like to refer to it as, I don't like to keep things vague. When we don't understand sort of the opposition, it's very difficult to understand who we're playing against in this game called life and how to win. So, what is this opposition? Why is it multi generational? How long are we talking about here? And what are we dealing with? And why do they not want humans to be in a thriving state?
Well, I think the best thing to understand is that a lot of this stuff is natural, sort of a natural adaptation, including the ruling group. And we don't think about what this world really, how it operates. We don't really think about it deeply. So when we go to the grocery store, we don't understand the rules of engagement on this planet, which brings about the ruling group. So when you're going to the grocery store, you might not realize the contract you're already in. You're going to basically hijack the life of another living thing, consume it so that you can live. That's what your life is like on this planet. That's the basic rules of engagement. So whether you're vegan or vegetarian, you're going to go eat an avocado, and if you're not, you're going to go have some fish or some beef or some nuts. You're stealing the life force of another living creature so that you can live another day. That's how you get this ancient group. They're well aware of, they're very old, so they've had the time through thousands of years to sit down and think about the rules of this place.
Okay, so when you say they're very old, are we talking about, are they very old, like are they
Themselves.
500 years old? Or are these, what are we talking about here? Let's get specific.
Well, you can go back to the ancient Egyptians, and you can go back farther than that, Sumerians, Babylonians. They're the masters of making you their food because that's the rule of engagement. So if you're going to live here on the planet, you have to have another food source to live off. And that way we're all sort of vampiristic. So they figured out how to trick humans to give their energy and their willpower to the ruling group. And the way they do that is mind control and poison. These are their two primary weapons by which they ensure their food source on the vampiristic planet for them and their family members and generations to come. They are masters. They are master pirates. They are thieves. But when you take from a blueberry bush in your wild environment in BC, you're sort of doing the same thing. They have this rule book where they're not really breaking any rules on this planet by tricking you to be their food source, to be what fortifies them.
So are you saying sort of eat or be eaten? Is that a fair interpretation?
For them, it's a bit of a severe acceleration of that. I don't think they have to abuse their food source as much as they're abusing it or have abused it throughout the ages. But this is their primary principle is like eat or be eaten. And whether they've had generational trauma or whether there's other things that impact their psyche, like they're sort of not known to reproduce outside their own gene lines, which can cause a lot of issues with trauma being passed down generation to generation. I don't know if people are aware, but after 3 generations, if the trait is consistent in 3 generations, by the 3rd generation, it's actually sort of imprinted into your DNA. That's called monarch program. So it's a very old group. They're very well organized, and they can hide things in plain sight. And there's reasons for that. There's a mind control trick revolving around hiding things in plain sight. And this is why in basically Washington, D.C., when I went to the Senate, Senator Ron Johnson asked me the same question you just asked me. He said, Jason, who are they? And of course, everybody that's sitting at the round table that invited me knows I could answer that. I could definitely answer that, but they gave me a look. The head honcho of our group looked at me like he just thought, okay, this is it. We're all fired some here.
You practiced some restraint. I did see that, and you
Yeah,
handled it very well.
Yeah, I handle it like a master politician. But the thing about this group, and I said Egyptian, there's an Egyptian obelisk or the fabrication of one in Washington, D.C. So they hide in plain sight. Like Senator Ron Johnson's a great man who actually does care about people. He really does. But when he goes to work every day, he's not thinking too much about the Egyptian obelisk. And if you look at the obelisk from the top, it's an all-seeing eye. And it's also the Vesica Pisces. These are the sort of fingerprints of the group that they like to sprinkle in plain sight to sort of dominate us on a subconscious level. Even in New York City, there's a real Egyptian obelisk. Like the one in Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument, that's just a construction of something that looks like an Egyptian obelisk. But in New York City in Central Park, there's actually what's called Cleopatra's Needle, which is a real Egyptian obelisk, I believe, from Luxor, Egypt. And there was a huge Freemasonic ceremony in the 1800s to bring it ashore and erect it inside Central Park. And again, there's lots of fingerprints and hints of this group. I mean, we know the Freemasonic apron is, everybody's familiar with the Freemasonic apron. You see the Freemasons wear it all the time. But if you go and see the Egyptian statues, they wear dresses. They're wearing the kilt, and the apron is representative of the Egyptian, of the kilt. So that the Egyptians used to wear. So there's a lot of symbology from this area of the world that's littered throughout our modern world, and you can hide all of this in plain sight if you don't educate the public as to exactly what's going on.
Very
But
difficult to
I was just
educate the public.
I was just going to say, yeah, they're masters of mind control. I wanted to add that
It
in. That's where they get their power.
it is. It's an extraordinary amount of power. And so how do we position our worldviews? And I mean, we look at all of this. We could, speak for 5 days straight and not scratch the surface. I mean, we are so powerful. And yet
Mhm.
we really don't understand it. How do we come to a place of empowerment when we know that we are under such extreme conditions just by being born onto this planet?
Well, I'll tell you how, like, a little daily practice you can engage in to help straighten your mind. And I'll give you a prime example of, I'll tell it in a story format so you can better understand it. I used to date this lady a long time ago, and she would actually kiss me goodbye as I was leaving my home. And then she would run after other males when I was gone. And then my friends would tell me that she was doing that. And then I would engage with her and say, "Oh, did you see so and so today? My friend said, you might be not being true." And of course, we want people, truth is very important if you're going to live an empowered life. So she would say, "That's absolutely not correct. I love you. You're the only person for me." And what happened is, although this lady didn't take any mind control courses her entire life, it's sort of natural. This is a natural learning process, is that if you can confuse your victim and you can have two opposite ideas circulating in the mind at all times, the person loses their ability to think and move ahead. So what you'll find in your regular life today, and this is a mind control tactic. So again, if you can envision one idea, the idea that this lady's wasting my time in one quadrant of my brain, and the other idea that she's telling me that I'm the only one for her in the other quadrant, you'd be very surprised that you could actually study those opposing ideas on something similar to what's called an oscilloscope, which shows the actual wave functions of those opposing ideas. And when they're in the brain at the same time, and it's called destructive interference, sort of in physics, it's actually called destructive interference. Also in the music industry, when you send two opposite and opposing sound waves or wave functions toward each other inside a closed environment, guess what wave function you get? A flat line. You can no longer think. And when you can no longer think, the controller that set up the confusing situation, they can now have their next go at you, because your mental resiliency to defend yourself against their contradiction is now missing. And this is an open mind control tactic. This is the most common and powerful mind control tactic in use today. Now, the only way I got out of that, the only way I escaped that flatline stun gun to my thinking effect, is I had to pick one idea based on the evidence and cancel the other. I had to literally remove the other one, remove that wave function from my mind so the other one could proliferate and amplify. And of course, I picked the one that held the most evidence that this woman was wasting my time. And I just, like a gentleman, backed out. That story, I want you to understand, that's the tactic that they're using against most people today in our society. I'll give you a very prime example that could really potentially rub people a little bit the wrong way. But please understand what I'm going to describe right now is being done on purpose because this ancient group controls all actors on the chessboard. So let's say we have a politician, and I won't even mention his name. We have a politician that is framed as anti-deep state. So for the people, anti-deep state. And this is one of the ideas that have been purposely fabricated to live inside the mind's eye or neurological forum of the audience. Now, that's one idea. Now, what would be the opposing idea to that, which you would purposely set up, is you would have this anti-deep state for the people politician continually pass deep state policies and policies that go against the people. And that's how people are being controlled today. You need both. What I'm trying to tell people in the most simplistic way is that governing you and tyrannically ruling you will not work unless the opposing ideas are in play at the same time simultaneously, because it's the only way to shut down your thinking. We can't be ruled by a politician in the way we're being ruled unless they have contradictory behavior, unless there's contradictory ideas. And then the audience becomes stun gunned. They cannot formulate their own positions because they allow both contradictory ideas to live in their neurological system at the same time. So the average person today, I'm sure maybe people have figured out the anti-deep state politician, that was a fabricated narrative. And then I have to let people know every single day that man wants to maintain power, he has to. It's not an option. He has to come out and contradict the prefabricated narrative that was put into the audience's mind a year and a half ago. This is what the average person doesn't understand. And until you pick one of the ideas to go with, you'll always live in that non-thinking, stun gun to thought zone. And that is what's going on today. Every news article is contradictory to the next one or contradictory to everything we ever learned in school and media up until 5 years ago. And that's how they rule. That's one of their favorite tricks.
That visual for me, and I'm sure for many watching, of the two opposing forces coming together and flatlining is an incredibly powerful visual. I'd really love you to speak into the reclamation of our attention, and then the power of that attention to actually create the reality in the world that most of us would actually like to live in.
Yeah, I mean, our attention has been spoken for a little bit, quite a bit by, our screens. Even the word attention is based on the word 10. In Egyptian numerology, 10 is sort of the highest level you can achieve in the physical realm. Number 11 is life after death. It's your first step after the physical realm. So attention is sort of what you're doing the most, or what you're doing in the most intense way. And today, the way mind control operates, and again, it's not by accident. This group is very good at understanding the human psyche, know how humans' brainwaves, they're well aware of quantum theory and how the brain waves or the thoughts of humans manifest physical reality. So if people haven't warmed up to that idea at this time, they might want to, because their knowledge of quantum theory is what's bringing you into the cinema and what's bringing your movies into your Netflix selection, because they want you engaged with their narrative, their fear-based and terror narratives, so that your brain waves go down to a fear and terror frequency and build a fear and terror-based reality. This group figured this out a long time ago. Either they're going to fill you with their perceptions, and I'm sure if people want to stop there, they can understand that's a bad thing. But if you want to go farther, I mean, they have a saying, what's on the street, like what's on the screen at noon will be on the street at nightfall. because what we see, we manifest. What we see, we become. We will be what we see. So a lot of people today are, their perceptions of who they are and their identity has been downloaded from media. And that includes me as well as a young man. I'm still trying to peel back the layers of who I am beyond being someone that I watched on the A team or being someone I admired as a sports celebrity. Or so our perception is basically comes down to two very simple concepts. Either you're going to control what goes in your eyes and your ears on a daily basis, therefore controlling your own brain, your creative brain waves of manifestation, or you're going to listen to the radio on the way to work, where you got Chuckles the clown telling you about the cancer charity, raising money for cancer, go eat a cancer causing hot dog, listen to some music like Beck that says, I'm a loser, baby, so why don't you kill me? And that's the kind of garbage. And then if you go to Netflix, you'll watch horrendous representations of males, horrendous representations of females, and you will adopt that as your own. If you want to sum up 4 years of psychological research really quickly, monkey see, monkey do. You will be what you see, so you can control what you see yourself and manifest that pathway, that line, that lifeline, if you wish, or they're going to drown you in their ancient mind control, negative tsunami of nonsense. And your life will be nothing but various degrees of the confusion that I just talked about. And you'll never make a decision. And both ideas will be alive and well in your brain, fighting it out and flatlining you every 5 minutes of your entire life. And you'll be stuck in your stuckness, sitting there and boiling in your own pot of water.
It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
Yep.
Please speak for our community into how we can understand the nature of the subconscious mind and its relationship with our prefrontal cortex that is usually out front.
Usually, supposed to be. Well, like none of these things are malfunctions. And your subconscious loves you and wants you to, it's like Spock, it wants you to prosper, stay alive and prosper. And it's always making these micro calculations on your behalf. So your subconscious loves you and operates a lot of functions on your behalf that you don't even know is going on. So right now, your heart is beating, your food's digesting, someone might be having, starting their menstrual cycle, their eyes might be blinking, and all of these things are for positive life creation, positive, keeping the life force going in your body. Are you in control of any of those? Absolutely not. And thank God you're not in control of your heart beating, because then you couldn't sleep because you'd have to tell your heart to beat all the time. You'd die from not sleeping. So again, the subconscious is like, okay, I love Jaime. I want her to be safe, and I'm going to do all these things for her to keep her safe. And the subconscious is like a computer system on its own, and it can process, depending on the estimate that you get, like 11 million pieces of data points a second. And it's all in relation to making sure you stay alive. And your conscious mind is out front, trying to do whatever has to be done at the time, cooking the tomato soup like I just did before I came in, or, making the bed or changing my light. And the conscious mind is the part of the brain. People are listening to the podcast right now, but it can only handle 140 data points a second. So it's not super smart or super swift. And your subconscious is doing this other thing that mind control is based on. Like all mind control, or most of it, is based on this other invisible function, which is using your eyes and your ears, getting a notepad out, and your subconscious is like, what's the most repetitive content I'm seeing? And what's the most repetitive content that I'm hearing? What's the most repetitive shoe everybody's wearing? What's the most repetitive color in the fashion industry? What's the most popular car? What's the most popular boot style during winter? What's the most popular hair color? And what's the most popular diamond ring? and it writes it all down, and it's really looking for repetitive content. It's looking for matches, similar content, similar themes, similar ideas, similar beliefs, and it wants a winner. It really wants to know what the most repetitive content is in sort of every category. Now, why would it care? Why would it dedicate so much time to this pursuit of something that's the most repetitious in the environment? The most repetition in the environment reflects the bigger group, period. And then if you can highlight and pinpoint the bigger group on all these factors and all these facets, you can know where the bigger group is. And then if you mimic that, if you copy that and wear the boots and the hair color and do everything the same as what the majority is doing, you can walk up into the bigger group and say, hey, you know what? I'm just like you. Can I join the tribe? And they look at you and they look for all the markers. Oh, same teeth, same hair, same boots, same purse, same belt. Come on in. You are one of us. So this is the psychology of the subconscious. Simple. Like, it's safer in the bigger group. We're pack animals. We want group acceptance. We feel safer in the group. So your subconscious isn't only beating your heart and growing your hair and renewing your skin and fighting maybe an infection in the system. It's also looking for what you got to do to be accepted by the bigger group. That's the base of mind control. So the people that I'm talking about, these ancient Egyptians and Babylonians, and probably farther back into the Zohar, and we don't even really know where they came from, but they figured this out a long time ago. They would have like a play in the agora or a play in the town square, and the hero would be wearing red. And the rulers would walk in, the play's over, it's the next day, the play ended the night before, and all the garment makers are like, oh, I can't keep red in the store. Everybody wants red. I don't know why. And it's because what you put on the stage also sort of mimics what the bigger group is doing or what everybody's eyes are watching, right? Everybody's sort of downloading the same thing. And so we want to be safe. We want to do what the popular people are doing because the popular people are really safe. They figured this out a long time ago, that I can make a movie, I can have a newspaper article, I can have fashion, I can have a Shakespearean play, and I can control your content that you see over many different areas. And if I can manipulate those areas to be the same in certain ways that your conscious mind won't even notice, I can control your behavior. Simply because your subconscious will have a magnetic affinity for the most repetitive content in your environment. So if I can control the environment and I can control the repetition in all your movies, all your music, all your National Geographic, all your Time magazine, all your Cosmo, and I don't teach you that, my group controls all of them. I want you to believe that there's no way I could control all of them as a mind controller, which this group does. And the proof of that, the proof that this group controls all the areas of our society can be found in the Dr. Richard Day tapes, if someone wants to look those up and listen to those.
Oh,
They
no. I'll
control,
put them in the show notes for everybody.
yeah, put them in the show notes and you're going to understand they have the ability to drown you in a tsunami of the content in which they want you to bond with. And it could be they wanted to destroy the family. So I'll give you a prime example. Christine, my better half, loves Murder, She Wrote. I will watch it just to analyze it for the nonsense, the programming. Now, it's an older series, but last night when we were watching it, it was about a beautiful blonde married to a rich man, cheating on him on the side, and then he dies. She doesn't even care. He's murdered by someone else. She doesn't even care, goes in to take control of his corporation on his behalf, and big Mercedes, peeling out and disrespecting other people in the corporation. That was mentioned in the Richard Day tapes in 1969, that this was a social repetitive engineering agenda, that they were going to destroy the family unit by repetitively showing the audience single empowered females that don't need men, who disrespect men. Plus, they were going to give the repetitive content of weak males that never stand their ground to make the division of the genders to be repulsed of each other. And they've done that. They've destroyed the family unit over the past 50 years by controlling the repetitive content that we see. And that's one agenda. There's another 110 agendas mentioned in the Richard Day tapes, and they've all come true, and they're easy to make happen. You just control the repetitive content of everything that the people see and interact with.
All right, so we're gonna go in a little bit, Jason, now after sharing that into the, what I like to call sort of the dirty dozen, or, the things that trip us up in our daily life that are repetitive, that we're seeing constantly, that we're not even aware of because they're being programmed into the environment. And so let's like rattle off the first couple big ones for folks that we're most impacted by and that will probably shock most people the most, just for kicks.
I will definitely unload on that. But I want people to understand that whatever I talk about, it's not natural to consume poisons. Now, how they would make you consume it is through the repetitive content. And if anybody's ever been hung over, they should understand the power of poison to shut down what's called your mental resilience. So your ability to think laterally is dependent on your nutrition. So I had a massive headache, I think, last week. I couldn't write. I couldn't do anything. Something poisoned me the day before. I don't really know what it was. And I couldn't even talk to my staff because I couldn't even follow. I couldn't think laterally for any of the problems that they had. They were small problems. I couldn't solve them. So I want people to understand that I'm going to name some of the poisons. You would never consume them if they weren't repetitively riddled throughout your environment, your media. And the reason they put it in the movies purposely is because you will lose your ability to think laterally, which means you will never figure your way out of the problem. So if you go back in the ancient manual of this ruling group, mind control, controlling the repetitive content in the media will get you X amount of the population doing exactly what you want. But if you poison them first, you're going to get double or triple the compliance quotient. Because if you can shut down the thinking, if you can injure the animal, if you can weaken the animal through poisoning, weak animals need the group or herd or wolf pack more than a strong animal for survival. So the weaker you are as a human, the more you comply with the repetitive content, because the repetitive content represents the bigger group. The more poisoned you are, the more you comply with my messaging. So not only am I going to control the messaging to control your destiny, I'm also going to throw in a whole bunch of repetitive content. So you drink alcohol, so you drink coffee, so you order takeout, so you keep your cell phone in your back pocket or your purse. And I want to pump in as many poisons as possible. Also knowing as the mind controller, like if I work for the ruling family, I'm well aware that you're not going to consume all the poisons I put out there. You're not going to vape or smoke. You're not going to smoke marijuana, and you're going to do some of them. And I'm happy with that as the controller, because as long as you're poisoning yourself in some way, unless you're reacting, as long as you're reacting in some way to my repetitive content to poison yourself as Olympic sport, I win as the mind controller. So maybe you don't drink, but you vape. Maybe you don't vape, but you drink coffee every morning. And maybe you don't drink coffee every morning, but you drink wine at night. To the ruling group, absolutely fantastic. As long as some of the repetitive content that tricks you to poison yourself in order to fit in with the bigger herd that doesn't even exist, I manufacture it as the controller. I manufacture the existence of the bigger herd by flooding your subconscious with the content I want. Then you have a magnetic affinity and you walk toward it. Coffee is their absolutely most favorite psychoactive drug for controlling the population out of all the repetitive content that they lace throughout your media. Coffee's number one, alcohol's number two. Alcohol used to be their number one till around 1610. The ruling group in 1610 was residing in the United Kingdom as the ruling group there. They discovered the caffeine in some of their colonies in the teas. But in around 1680, when they were doing, I think, cutting through Saudi Arabia, they found coffee. And they hurried back and said, you think the caffeine disrupts health and disrupts brain function, which it really does. Caffeine, if you look it up on the internet right now, you'll see that caffeine shuts oxygen flow and blood flow down to the brain by 20 to 30%. And that's a low ball estimate, but that's what you'll find on Google. The big favorite effect is if you drink coffee, you deactivate and have a lot less blood flow and oxygen to what's called your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain, the most evolved part of your brain just behind your forehead. It's the CEO and spiritual center of your mind. It's the morality center, and it's your ethics center. And if you haven't noticed, in today's day and age, there's a big gap in the morality and ethics rolling around. And this group knows this. They know this stuff. You don't know this stuff. You think that coffee's on your every corner because it's great, because you hear it's great. Now, who do you think's telling you it's good for your kidneys and good for your liver? And if you drink coffee, you live 5 years longer. Who do you think's organizing that for you? Who do you think owns Starbucks? Who do you think funded the purchase of Starbucks? It was bought by Howard Schultz, so there's always a front man. So Starbucks was a franchise in trouble in Seattle in 1980. Only had 6 shops. Howard Schultz was working for Starbucks at that time, wanted to buy it, and he didn't have the money. And there's a very odd story about the purchase, but Howard Schultz got the franchise, but he was funded by William Gates Sr. and Bill Gates Jr. And today, Starbucks has 45,000 shops. They're everywhere. There's a siren as the logo and symbol. A siren is a mythical maritime creature that draws sailors to their death by bringing them too close to the rocks. And this group loves the symbology because the symbology interacts with the subconscious. There's a minor terror campaign in the logo alone that the subconscious can pick up. And the subconscious knows the caffeine is poison. How do we know caffeine is poison? Is because it's known, and caffeine is known as what's called an alkaloid poison. It's used by the coffee plant and many other plants to kill bugs and to kill other competing foliage that grows around the caffeine producing plant. Caffeine kills things.
Is this similar to the oxalates? Are you familiar with oxalate, high oxalate food? Is this what we're talking about in this situation?
Caffeine is way worse than that. And this is why the blood flow is inhibited or shunted away from the prefrontal cortex, because your subconscious is smart enough to know that you don't want to put poison into your brain. The whole process, it's a change of brain function. So caffeine, given the body recognizes it as a poison, you have a fight or flight response. So the average person knows fight or flight response. There's a mugger, there's a pit bull chasing you, and you get afraid, and all these reactions are like dominoes. The reason you have a fight or flight is when your lifespan is in jeopardy. You only have one fight or flight mechanism. Your body knows that caffeine's a poison. The fight or flight is activated because if you don't deal with it, you're going to die earlier. That's why you have the fight or flight. And part of the fight or flight reaction is a inhibition of the prefrontal cortex, because you don't need the smartest part of your brain when you're in fight or flight, and an activation of what's called the limbic system, or the reptilian brain, the hind brain, or the R complex. It's the dumbest part of the brain. It is group compliant. It's heavily suggestible. It has no ability to think long term. So if I want you, say, to go participate in, say, a medical experiment, and I'm the ruler and I have nefarious agenda, this is just a hypothetical, I want you on caffeine because I want you in the limbic system, because the limbic system does not think long term. So I want you to think, I want to control your thinking through the chemical infusion of caffeine so that you say, I'll just go get that. I'll just go participate in the medical experiment. Well, aren't you thinking about what's going to happen 3 years, 4 years down the road? That part of the brain, when activated by caffeine, it doesn't even have the ability to think long term. So whatever I don't want you to think about as a ruler, I want to get you ingesting poison as much as possible. It's not going to dominate. For me as a ruler, I know I'm not going to get 100% compliance. But if I can get 70, if I can get 80, if I can get 55, 60, the standard compliance rate with the average human is 30. 30% will comply just with the repetitive content. If I can activate your limbic system through poisoning, I'm going to double that. Absolutely. And that why as a ruler, I want you poisoned, and I will put in all the movies, a coffee cup, like a takeout coffee cup, a clay coffee mug. If you're in the kitchen, you'll see a percolator coffee machine on the back counter. A restaurant, you'll see a nice expensive espresso machine. Or I'll film the scene in a coffee shop. And I dedicate 25 minutes of my new documentary to coffee alone, simply because it is the most important attack, subconscious download in film, hands down, not even a close second, although second is alcohol.
It seems cruel though that the poison has to taste so good.
It tastes like garbage. If you give it to a kid, if you give it to a 12-year-old and make sure it's not too hot, they'll spit it out.
Mhm.
It's the only reason we consume it is because it makes us high. It's the most
Mm.
sedative, groovy feeling drug without making us too goofy to screw up our workday. That's why it's such a good high. Caffeine is like it is. It's the best high you'll ever get. It's long, it's consistent, and there's no real big ups and downs with it. This is why it's so addictive.
The US Department of Defense has something called non-lethal acoustic weapons. So, as if the coffee and the alcohol and the vaping and the poisoning at every level right now wasn't enough. Now we're getting into these non-lethal acoustic weapons. So let's turn the corner on that because we're going up into another level. It's one thing when you get a choice whether or not, as you drive by 18 Starbucks on the main street, and all of them have lineups of 10 cars
Right.
that's compelling enough. Now it's coming at us in a way that is invisible. It's one thing to have your phone in your back pocket. It's another thing to actually be subject to electromagnetic frequencies, sound frequencies. And as it turns out in my studies, the more and more I learn about the power of sound for healing, which is the ultimate goal of what we want to do here with Thrivolution, is to help humans heal so that we can step into our full human potential. But it's very difficult if you're cutting out coffee and you're cutting out all the other things and you're doing this at the dentist, and I mean, I'm doing it all. This is the one area I find very concerning and really want to dive into with you as to what you're doing to protect yourself and why we genuinely need to put it on the list, maybe right up there with coffee.
Yeah, these invisible, acoustic weapons, some of them aren't invisible. There are crowd disbursement microwaves that are easily found on YouTube, where there was one I think used recently in Europe where there was a big crowd, a big government protest, and this big military van came down the road and just pointed a device, and everybody just scattered because it felt like their skin was on fire. So that's something that's pretty obvious. But the same premise applies, is that it's going to make you feel uncomfortable and it's going to damage you. Your phone is sort of an invisible acoustic weapon that you carry around with you. The more you carry it around with you, even if you go to YouTube and find the report, ABC report called Why Fried, you'll see that wireless technology is not healthy. And although most people have their phones on, it's not going to give them a feeling of sickness if it's on their person But I can guarantee you, especially if you watch that Why Fried movies and some other selections YouTube might pre-choose for you that run down the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see this is not healthy. It's a danger. It injures your cells. And again, why are they doing it? I just described why they're doing it. The more injured you are, the weaker you are. The weaker you are, the more you need the herd. And I'll just give a quick example of how this works in the natural world. I tell this story a lot about the trail cameras out in the wild. And there was a trail camera research team that were following a pack of wolves. And the strongest wolf was really big, really tough, didn't even sleep with the wolf pack, really strong alpha, would sleep on the hill by himself, overlooking the rest of the wolf pack. But then they noticed on the trail camera that one night this big bad wolf comes down and he's limping. He had gotten a fight. Who knows how big the wolf was that hurt his leg. For the first time ever, because the wolf is weak and weak animals need the herd more, he nuzzles in for the first time into the middle of the wolf pack and lied down apologetically to, I'm hurt. I need your help to survive. I need the group. And that's what all these things are weapons on the same sort of level. They don't care how you weaken yourself. They just know that if you do, although it's not a guarantee, the more you weaken yourself, the greater chance that you will comply with the group pressure. The group pressure is the repetitive content. So they could crank up, like this is why these towers are all going around your neighborhood, because they have volume, like they're not at a steady volume. They can turn it down, they can turn it up. And if they wanted to attack, like they have been attacking for thousands of years, you're not going to be around a Wi-Fi tower and burst into flame, but they can make you feel metabolically ill through the manipulation of these invisible acoustic weapons that we call cell phone towers. They can really increase the electrical flow to them, increase the range and increase the intensity of the beam, so that you feel nauseous. And then while you're feeling nauseous, they come out on the news and said, there's a cyber attack. And then, to alleviate your fear of the cyber attack, do X, Y, and Z. The more uncomfortable you feel metabolically, the more apt you're going to take their low-hanging fruit and obey the command. Because to obey the command, to deny the command, you have to have enough strength to envision you could win a fight with that powerful force. But if you don't feel strong at all, you're just very, very compliant. It's a natural adaptation to weakness. Compliance is your human adaptation to weakness. They're just trying to weaken you on all levels.
It's also been made very sexy. And this is one of the things that I see that is the most challenging with children, with teenagers. And I'm with you. The most important thing that I want to do is not only create a legacy for our kids and a future where we have clean water, we have good soil, all of our God-given birthrights, I believe, as human beings. And yes, on another level, I believe we come into this game of life. We come in to play the game. It's not meant to be easy. I see this, oppositional force as really an instigator actually of empowerment, because when we learn how to play the game and we have a good opponent, we get better. So the better the opponent, the better we get. And so if we really understand this opponent, we study the opponent. I'm interested in really understanding the opponent very, very well, because I feel like it strengthens me to know how to play the game. And then the opponent won't matter so much. It's like you study the opponent to a degree, and then at some point you let go of the opponent, you become fully aware and self-autonomous, and then reclaim your power back. And for the kids, this is really the message, to empower them to understand that they've basically been born into an oppositional force called the Earth School. And I want to hear from you. What is your worldview as like we come into this human experience, and what's happening here?
You might as well insert the picture from, I don't even remember the movie with John Travolta. He's just looking around like this. Basically, Pulp Fiction. I don't really know, and I do this for a living. I don't really know exactly what this place is. And as for the kids, sometimes it's not only the repetitive content they show us, it's what they don't show us. And this is what is really hurting the children is they're not hearing conversations like this. They're just going to school where the teachers are like, men can have periods. And, this is not, I mean, that's confusing. It's there to confuse and stun gun the kids. And if it's not men can have periods, there's men in your bathrooms. And it's all about terrorizing them and shutting down their thinking. And I gave a good talk on this on the National Citizens Inquiry just about 3 weeks ago. But we really have to expose the children to repetitive content that tackles the big ideas, that teaches them how to think on their own and teaches them strength to go against the herd, because you got to go with wired headphones, because the wireless headphones are there to do all kinds of stuff I could describe that would be unbelievable to anybody listening right now, unless they sort of follow me on a regular basis. So I won't get into it. But trust me, these aren't there so that you can run on the treadmill without knocking your headphones out. They're there for such dark and evil means. Your coffee shops are on the every corner for the same thing. Your alcohol shops, the drugs in British Columbia are legalized. It's not for inclusion or equity or to help people addicted to drugs. Pick an idea and go with it, or you're going to have a real hard time having those two. Like, you see the deaths in BC from the drug overdoses going through into the stratosphere. And then you have politicians purposely, because it won't work any other way. The politicians are saying, this is great. That's the system. That's the whole system, is this contradictory, like you don't even believe your own eyes because you went to school for 15 years. And they told you the government never lies to you and is always out for your betterment. And until you can reconcile those two ideas and pick one that fits best, which is drugs are bad, and no one should be giving them out to their populations, period. And if you want to keep your society intact, drugs should be illegal coast to coast. Pick an idea, or you're going to be perpetually confused in the world ahead, and try to expose your children to repetitive content that's more empowering. If not me, you could pick someone else, but don't only expose your kids to the TV and teachers who tell you that men can have periods.
You've got a program for you, I believe it's called. Let's go there. Let's start to go with some of your opportunities for people to not only be aware of what's going on at a much deeper level, because I mean, I'm in your coaching program. And like I said at the beginning, I thought I was a pretty with it gal, and I've been quite surprised at just how mind controlled we all are. And it's been really empowering, sobering, shocking, sometimes laughable. But I'm really empowered to bring my children into your world and to have your help in teaching them about the world that we find ourselves in. I'm thrilled and excited to promote your work, to work with you, to collaborate with you, to be a coach in the Freedom from Self-Sabotage School. Like you, I obviously agree that I don't think there's anything better that we can do with our worldview and our ability to empower ourselves. I feel like 2026 is a game changer. I feel like people are really waking up at scale to what's going on in a way that they weren't before. And so my vision for 2026 is that we move into it and we really start to reclaim this realm. We start to reclaim this place that we call home while we're here in the short time that we're here. And so I want to start with what you offer for the kids in tandem with what you offer for the adults. And
Well, I have just two programs I teach to the public, only one time each per year. So I have the coaching program, Overcoming Self-Sabotage coaching program that you're in. And it allows people to gain a certification, to see clients, to help them understand these subjects, because all self-sabotage is mind control based. So it's basically a great course for understanding brainwashing, mind control, and propaganda. And that's a little bit of a longer course. And, there's homework and you have to pass a test, basically a practical and a written exams. But the second offering I have is a shorter course, teaches everything that I teach inside the coaching program about mind control and brainwashing. It's called The Power in You, because unless you understand these subjects, you're going to just step into one bucket of poop in life and quickly jump out into two more. And you'll be like, why do I keep stepping in these buckets of poop? And it's not you. It was never you. It's this group that, they like to dress up. It's a big, like you said, it's a game. They dress up in suits. They have official titles. They say, yes, I'm upset about this. We're going to do that. And now we're going to fund this. They control the repetitive content. So you're just a perpetual non-threat. You're just a perpetual human mess. So in the Power in You program, I explain how it all works, how you can sidestep it. There's 5 pillars of strength you have to develop that you're going to have to utilize each pillar, each of the 5 pillars of strength in order to take back your life and take back this planet. And the Power in You is pretty comedic. It's lots of fun. It's kind of hilarious. It's coming up January 11th. So I have an adult course, and then I have a free kids course that for kids, that it's the same Power in You course, but for the youth ages 13 to 22. I shave the corners down.
Mhm.
And you can watch it with your children. I'm not going to scare them. Everything is, softened down so they can just understand the school system, understand their cell phones, understand social media, understand the food system, understand university and college and where they're going to be safe in the future, where they're not going to be safe. And any child that's ever done that, again, ages 13 to 22, any teen or young adult that do this, have said it's game changer, that they never ever see the world the same, and they see themselves as a lot more powerful and a lot more capable of controlling their own destiny. And I do that for the adults too.
How cool for parents to be able to do that with their children. I love that. It's really remarkable what you're doing, Jason. And so, let's just wrap up. I mean, I could talk to you. I know that it's late there in Latvia. I don't want to keep you any longer. I want to just thank you so much for your time, for your support of Thrivolution and our relaunch, going into 2.0. I really consider you an ally, a friend, a colleague, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the new year and all the great things to come. We're going to put down in the show notes how you can find Jason. We're going to be in the Power of You 1,000%. My kids are going to be in it. I'd like to encourage families to come back together in whatever way we can, as much as we can with our kids, and let's make 2026 the best year ever.
I offer your listeners maybe a present.
We didn't talk about your documentary coming out. Is that the present?
No, that's free. There's going to be a watch party for that. That's going to be really hilarious. The documentary is so good. I can't wait till it comes out. I laugh and giggle when I watch. They always work on it and send me the different cuts of it. It's so good. I just laugh it the whole time. But if someone wants to learn about mind control, I will give someone a gift. It's usually worth $199. I will give it for free. It's basically the top 10 mind control hacks that the government and media used on the public during from 2020 forward. And then it also has the solutions so that you can work around their tactics and recognize their tactics and reconcile them. So they can just email me personally, info@jchristoff.com. So it's the single initial J. You could put it in the show notes. Christoff is Christ with an OFF on the end. So info@jchristoff.com. No subliminal advertising there for Christ, the good Lord. But if they want, just when they email, just put down the top 10 mind control hacks used by government and media against the public from 2020 forward. They'll find it very entertaining, get a feel for what I teach, and it'll help them lead a healthier, more satisfying, secure, and safe 2026.
Thank you, Jason. That's very generous of you. I will link that down in the show notes so everybody has everything that they need down there to dive into the land of a great 2026 with Jason Christoff. We got to tell people about the documentary. It's coming out in a couple days, isn't it?
It's coming out. I just keep like retweaking it because I want it to be the perfectionist programming I have. But basically, if they want to see the trailer, planetmindcontrol.com, they can watch the trailer. And if they email me, I'll just put them on the list because we're going to have a big international watch party. We're going to have a couple thousand people, I'm sure, on the line for that one. So make sure you come watch the premiere of that film.
Amazing. Jason is the true revolutionary, evolutionary, thrive-evolutionary of our times. Jason, you're just a beautiful human. I'm super blessed to know you. I'm super blessed to be able to feature you on the Thrivecast.
Thank you.
All right. It's a wrap.